Welcome back for another video. I'm Ehabad, a free-to-play endgame player in Raid Shadow Legends. In this video we'll continue the Budget Faction Wars series with Sacred Order Stage 21. Sacred Order has the most champions in the game, bar none. However, so many of the epics are deeply underwhelming. When I beat this faction back in March 21, I did so largely because of the Astralon fusion. The CC and damage he brings really made the faction trivial to beat. In fact, the current fusion, Bivald, will also be excellent as a support healer and as a crowd control champion. He will undoubtedly hard carry the faction for anyone picking him up. Without Astralon or any of the other excellent legendaries in the faction, Sacred Order quickly becomes increasingly challenging. The next most popular approach is to use, or perhaps abuse, Cardinal's phenomenal revive, and slowly bulldoze your way through without much consideration to strategy. Today we will avoid all of these approaches and instead utilise a combination of Inquisitor Shamil and Armiger. Phenax would also work superbly as a DPS and block revive champion, bringing as well decreased speed and AoE block buffs. However, mine is not built, and as a DPS he really needs to be 60 to be worthwhile. So if we look at the composition we're going to use for this run overall, I have Deacon there for AoE drop defense and for TM control on an AoE basis, giving us both a TM fill and a TM decrease on the enemy. We've got Mordecai to bring a buff for Shamil and increase attack, which would also help Shamil kill an enemy. And in addition, he also has an AoE TM control. We have Armiger as another TM control champion on a single target, but crucially here, he has a block revive on the A2, which we'll use against one of the ads in the boss. Romero rounds out our composition of support champions for Shamil, bringing 2 buffs and some healing. So between the 2 buffs that we'll get from Romero and the 1 buff we'll get from Mordecai, it'll be enough buffs such that Shamil ignores 100% of defense. So between that plus the increased attack, we should guarantee to kill someone. And when Shamil kills someone via his A2, he'll also put out True Fears on everyone else. So we'll be using Shamil as our crowd control champion. So let's jump into the run and see how it goes. As usual, take it off auto, although Deacon was actually doing the right thing. So here we need to get us a little bit of a buff. And we'll do another buff and increase the attack. So when I mentioned before about Romero bringing us 2 buffs, he actually is only bringing us 1 via the A3, but the other buff, he's in a shield set, so the other buff comes from him being in a shield set. So here I just want to nuke someone down, so we'll go with that Broadmoor to make sure that he can't revive anyone. And now you can see that everyone else has True Fear on them. The only champion I'd be concerned about here would be the Torture Helm, so I'll use Armiger to make sure that he never takes a turn. Use our little TM control there. We'll just slowly kill everyone. Little TM fill. I won't use Deacon's A2. I don't want to kill Torture Helm with anyone other than Armiger. So I will leave him for now. And then with Armiger, I can block revive, so he won't even come back, which is another nice little use of Armiger there to make sure that Torture Helm can't annoy us. And at this point, we could use the A2, but I want it off cooldown when we get to the next wave, so I'll just A1. Armiger will make sure that no one else takes a turn. We'll have everything off cooldown once we get through to the second wave. And then we're cleanly through. We can give us a little TM, get the drop defense out, buff ourselves and put the HP burnout. And then here the most annoying person is definitely Maneater, so we'll take him down first off. Then our next most annoying person will be Steel Skull, so we'll TM control him. After that, Norog is also quite annoying, so we'll be considering him as well. But for the time being, we'll try and kill one of the squishier targets over here. Do another little TM control. Okay, 2 are down. Go for the TM control there. Always a chance he was going to weak hit, but seemed worth giving it a go anyway. Didn't really need to do the block revive there, but it felt like it. Hopefully we can just get TM control on Norog, cycle back, get our skills off cooldown, and get through to the boss with all of our abilities. And now we're through to the boss. So the key consideration here is the right add ignores defense. So we want to ensure that the right add never attacks. Now, the boss will open with an ally attack ability. So until we have either stunned or killed this side add, we need to ensure the boss doesn't take a turn. Now, we don't have stun in the team. I'm not running anyone in stun set, and Astralon is not in the team. So as a consequence, we're going to have to TM control the boss until the right side add is dead. So we'll open the exact same way as we did before, get a load of damage out on that side add, and then with Armiger, we'll just TM control the boss. Hopefully this won't quite kill. Perfect, now we'll get a bit of TM control. Now, ideally here, Armiger will block revive the side add. And now, this fight is actually safe. Between the boss and this add, there isn't that much damage coming from these two champions, and now the right side add cannot be revived. So I should be safe to full auto it at this point. Another nice thing about Shamil in this fight is the boss has the ability to put some fears out on us, but with Shamil there, that won't happen. So in this A1, it's a chance to put fears. And as I mentioned, you can see it's pretty safe. Just click the boss, auto it. Without that right side add ignoring defense, this encounter becomes quite straightforward. So Shamil really has hard carried us here. But like I mentioned, there are other ways you can do it. You don't have to have Inquisitor Shamil. You can abuse the Cardinal Revive, and basically that right side add will keep killing most of your team, and Cardinal will keep picking them all up. You just need to make Cardinal fast and tanky with high HP to survive against the ignore defense, preferably in a regen set. And there we have it. Shamil really hard carried us there, but we had a lot of turn meter control coming from Mordecai, Armiger, and Deacon, and then enough sustain and buffs from Romero to get through it. So let's jump over to the builds and see how these champions are set up. Shamil does need to hit quite hard to make this work, so you do need to build him with quite a lot of attack, because you do want to be one-shotting an enemy on each wave to get those true fears out. As a consequence, the build is fairly intensive, but not ridiculous either. Like I've tried to not build him too strong. It doesn't actually need to be as quick as this. You could definitely build him slower, maybe more around sort of 180 to 200 kind of area. But if you can stack a decent level of attack and crit damage, you will need that to be able to one shot the waves, and also enough accuracy to be landing the true fears is also important. In terms of sets, I've used a couple of perception sets here to get the accuracy, and then a couple of offsets. Furthermore, the skills are done, although the A1's not finished, but the A2 is. The A2, the books are important. This extra 35% in damage is really significant. And then on masteries, I've actually got this Shamil in War Master. I'm not entirely sure why, to be honest. I can't remember what I was actually intending on doing with him. I think I built him kind of as a DPS Shamil for Hydra. But I don't think these masteries are optimum, to be honest. But that is where I have him at the moment. On to Mordecai. In terms of total stats, he does need to be faster than Shamil, because I need to get the buff out. Enough accuracy to be landing the debuffs and the TM control is important, and then just some survivability. You don't need to have this level of resistance. We're not trying to build any resistance in this particular composition. You don't need this level of effective HP either, but I kind of have my Mordecai as a spider tank. So typically this is the setup I have. He used to have higher resistance, but I stole his resistance banner for a Hydra build on another champion. And then the skills are done. The A1's not finished, but the important skills, the A2 and the A3, are done. And in terms of masteries, he's really not got very far. I did a couple of the accuracy nodes, and that's it. I've never actually taken him any further than that. On to Mr. Armstrong here. You will probably question why the build is how it is, but I will explain. So my Deacon is very quick. It's actually a Dark Fae build, hence the high level of accuracy and a high speed. This is still probably overkill even for Dark Fae. I think you only need about 350 to 360 kind of area. And then beyond that, he's built incredibly squishy because I want to make sure that he dies by my Herndig. So my Herndig will nuke my entire team effectively, the mirror copies. So everyone for that fight is built quite squishy, and hence my Deacon does not have a ring or an amulet, and a lot of his gear is not fully rolled up. In terms of the skills, they're all fully done. We know Deacon is a great epic and well worth building, well worth the books, and he's very, very good for the faction as well. In terms of masteries, kind of a traditional clan boss style mastery setup I have for Deacon, although I don't use him in clan boss myself. Then on to Armiger. Here we've got him built basically 100% crit to get the TM drop, enough accuracy to be landing the debuffs, fairly quick, and then try to stack as much crit damage as I could within the build that I gave him, which frankly isn't that good a build. But at least you can see that with this level of a build, it's enough to get the job done. He's really just there for the TM control in the A1 and enough damage just to make sure they can get that block revive out on the side ad. Skills are done. He is an uncommon, so you really should be booking him out without too much difficulty, just through copies of himself. And then in terms of masteries, again, not done by really any stretch of the imagination. I've used him before for Scarab, and I think that's really the only reason I built him. But happens to have a second function here as a block revive champion on that right side ad, so not too bad at all. And then for people who have followed me for a while and seen me on like Hell Hades channel in the past, you'll know that I built a Romero at least to level 50, but invested a fair amount of time and effort into him because ultimately he was the first kind of support healer I pulled on the account, and by having him, it was the difference between me being able to farm Minotaur efficiently and not. I never bought any masteries for any of my champions through gems. I wanted to be able to grind it even for the first set of champions. I wanted to get over that hurdle the, shall we say, old-fashioned way, rather than buying any progress, even if it's, part of the game mechanic. I therefore have a fairly extensively mastered level 50 Romero. The masteries aren't important for this, to be honest, at all. And in terms of books, I've never actually put any into him. So he's on pretty ridiculously long cooldowns, but the way that I was setting up the fight was fine. And like I mentioned before, he's in a shield set to give me that extra buff to ensure that Shamil ignores defense, particularly on this A2, which we've mentioned before. Have the 25% ignore defense plus an additional 25% for each buff. So if you have 3 buffs on you, you'll ignore 100% of defense. So popping over to the index, there are other epics that can bring buffs for Inquisitor Shamil. Lightsworn brings 2 buffs, including actually a revive on death, which can come in clutch. So, Lightsworn's not bad. Also happens to have a decreased speed and decrease attack on a single target, which is good for both, for the bosses, and if you need extra help sort of TM controlling the waves, Lightsworn's actually pretty good for that. So actually the probably the best epic to support Inquisitor Shamil in his ignore defense approach is actually now the recently buffed Frostbringer. So having increased speed and increased attack together gives you 2 buffs, which, with a shield set would give you the 100% ignore defense. And it's also 2 very useful buffs here. We're trying to outspeed the enemy, so having increased speed is very useful. And obviously increased attack. If you don't have Mordecai, then Frostbringer is a very viable champion to come in that slot. Also has this decreased defense, so if you don't have Deacon and you need a sort of AoE drop defense in inverted commas, then Frostbringer can do that. So I think Frostbringer could definitely work in place of either Deacon or Mordecai, depending on what champions you have available to you. As we've mentioned, Cardinal with the A3 revive all of everyone and give them max turn meter. You can definitely abuse this mechanic if you don't have the right champions, but you do have a Cardinal, you can do that. And Mistress of Hymns also has a A3 revive and a bit of a strange kind of buff mechanic on the A2, which you could tune it such that Shamil is one of the 2 allies with lowest HP, so you'll continuously get the continuous heal as an extra buff. You could definitely make that one work to your advantage. As I mentioned before, Phenax hits very hard on the A1. You can get that block revive out. So if you don't have Armiger built or you've already invested in Phenax, he can also be very viable as a champion to ensure block revive goes on the right side ad. And then in addition to that, he brings some good CC abilities. If I had Phenax built, I would also potentially try him in place of Inquisitor Shamil and see if I could do something with the block buffs ability to counteract some of the champions, plus with a very hard hitting A1, selectively pick which champions I want to kill. I do think if you're relying on Phenax as your main DPS and main sort of pseudo crowd control champion, you definitely need to be bringing a reviver. I think you'll find it very difficult without. So I would say if you don't have Shamil and you don't have any of the legendaries and you want to try and build it around Fenax, you need either Mistress or Cardinal to make that one work. But, a good champion Fenax, definitely underrated. Obviously, another reviver here is Godseeker Neri. We have the A3 revive and we have the passive revive as well. So I think you could definitely use Godseeker and Fenax as another way of getting around it. I mean, the reality is this faction's so large that there's so many different ways you can beat it, and it really does depend on what champions you have. A lot of the legendaries are superb and can hard carry it as well. Roshkard, Astralon, Marta, Bivald, Sir Nick, Cardiel. I mean, those can all absolutely hard carry the faction. Venus obviously very strong as well. And even this Archbishop can do some work. We've got a fantastic kind of heal, increased defense, kind of just general support ability on the A3. So, there's a lot of different options within Sacred Order. There just happen to be a lot of trash epics. So it depends on who you've pulled, who you have available. I've shown sort of one approach, and I've tried to talk through a few other permutations that can work and a few other ideas I'd have. But obviously, if you have one of the big legendaries, they should definitely be in your team. Most of them are fantastic for faction wars. Abbess also hits extremely hard AoE drop defense. You can definitely use her as a kind of hard carry nuker. But I think if you did that, you would probably want a healer for safety. A reviver for safety. All right, so there we have it. I hope this has been useful for you. Please forgive the quality of this video, as I've been quite hungover making it. That might explain why I've been rambling on without the level of coherence that I normally put into these things. Anyway, it is what it is. Right. As I said, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Any feedback is always welcome, unless the feedback's about me being hungover, in which case, well, it is what it is. No one can change that now. Good luck beating the faction, and catch you in the next video. See you next time. Bye for now.